Hello and welcome to programmerblog.net. In a previous tutorial, we learned about how to get data from database and display it to the user using jQuery AJAX. In this tutorial, we are going to learn about how we can post or send data to the server and save it into the database. Let me show you what we are going to build today. As you can see in this browser window, I have a very simple form with first name, last name and email fields. Also, we have a button over here. When a user fills in this form and clicks this button, data is sent to the server using an AJAX POST request, and on the server, after proper validations, data is saved into the database. Let me show you the database. So here you can see I have a database named DB users and a table called users, and in this database table I have fields like first underscore name, last underscore name and email. Some records are already over here. Let me show you a demo how this works. So here I add first name of a user, second name of the user and then an email. So when I press the save button, data is sent to the server and then it is saved into the database. We have a message record saved successfully and message disappears, and let us see in the database whether this record is saved into the database or not. So when I come over here and press this browse link, here's our data, tester example and test@example.com. So let us create this project from scratch. I hope you have already installed XAMPP or WAMP on your system. So open www or www root folder of your XAMPP or WAMP installation and create a folder named jQuery AJAX POST and open this folder into your favorite IDE. I have opened this jQuery AJAX POST folder into Sublime Text. So before creating any files over here, first let us create our database. So here I will add the database name as DB users and click create. So this will create a database DB users for us, and let us create new table over here. I will name this table as users and it will have 4 number of columns. So first column would be ID integer and this column will be auto increment as this will be primary key of our table. First underscore name and data type would be varchar, and I give this like 80 characters. Then last underscore name varchar pose 80 characters. Last column would be email is varchar and also give it as like 60 characters, and I click on save. So our users table is created and first ID, first name, last name and email. So after creating the database and database table, let us start creating our project, and here I will create a file named index.php and will add a form over here. So let me create a new file over here called index.php. So I will save it in the project folder and add some code to display our form. To save some time, I will add the code over here and will explain this code to you. We have a HTML tag over here and a head tag over here, and inside head tag we have included a style.css file that we are going to code in a moment, and inside body tag we have a container div, and inside container div we have a message div over here and a form. And here I have an input type text whose name is first underscore name and ID also first underscore name. Then I have an input named last underscore name and also its ID is last underscore name. And after first underscore name we have a field named email and its ID is also email, and we have a button whose ID is save users, and in the bottom we have included jQuery from code.jquery.com, and there's a custom -scripts.js. This is our custom JavaScript file where we will add our Ajax code and send our data to the server. You can find the complete source code of this tutorial, the link given in the description of this video. After creating this form, let us see that how our form looks like in the browser. So open a new tab and add this URL over here. We have our form created, but there is no styles applied to it because we have not added our style.css yet. So let us add our style.css file. That we have included our style.css. So let me come over here and create a new file. Name it as style.css. Again, to save some time, I have already created some styles and I will explain that to you. This is a small CSS file, and here we have our body tag to whom we have assigned our font family Arial Black. Then we have our container div, and inside container we have tables, so we have also assigned some CSS rules for those tables. Then we have .btn class for our button, in which we have given some background colors, borders and margins. And after that we have input type equal to text and input type equal to email. As you know, we have defined these input types in our form, and we have given width, padding, margin and borders over here. And after that we have success and error classes. So these success and error classes are for the messages that we display when our user successfully enters the valid data and we save it into the database, or in case some validation or server error occurs and we show these messages to the user. So after adding these styles, let us see how our form looks now. So let me refresh this. Our form is looking better now, and our CSS style rules are applied on this form. We have created this form, and now we have to add our client-side JavaScript. We have to add jQuery Ajax code that will send user data to the server. And in this index.php file in the bottom, we have a script called custom-script.js. This script will contain our Ajax code that will be used to send data to the server. So let us add this JavaScript file. I am going to add a new file over here, and let me save this file as custom-script.js and save. So in this file, let me add some code and I explain this code to you. This $, this is jQuery object, and we use this $sign to access jQuery methods and event. We have a function $, function and a curly bracket, and this whole code is inside this curly bracket and this jQuery function. This function checks the state of readiness of the page. So browser will check that whenever our whole page is loaded and all the images, CSS files and JavaScript files are fully downloaded to the client's browser, then it will execute all the code inside this code block. Inside this function, we have an event handler for the save users button. So inside this index.php, we have a button whose ID is save users. inside this code block we have on-click event handler for the save users. So this save users is ID for the button. So whenever this button save users is clicked, so we are telling jQuery that whenever the click event happens for this button, run this code. And inside this code that we are getting first name, last name and email form fields values into the variables, and we are using jQuery.val function. Inside this $, we pass first underscore name, last underscore name and the email. Those are IDs of our form fields: last underscore name, first underscore name and email. So the values of these fields are copied into these variables, and after that we have a jQuery $.ajax function. Inside this function we have defined that the method we are going to use is post, and the URL where our data will be posted is save records underscore ajax.php, and we are passing our data to the server as a JSON object, that first underscore name, and then we have our variable first underscore name over here, last underscore name, and we have assigned last underscore name value to this key, and lastly we have email field and whose value is assigned to it. And whenever this AJAX request triggers and data is posted to server, then server saves this data to the database, and result is returned as a JSON encoded object. And using jQuery's $.parse JSON method, we decode this JSON result and show our user an appropriate message. This JSON encoded result is decoded using $.parse JSON method, and based on the result returned from the server, we show user an appropriate message, and success or error class is also assigned to the div. So after creating this client side jQuery Ajax code, our next task is to create this save records underscore ajax.php file and add some server side PHP code that will get this data from the user and save it into the database. So let me create this file over here. Create this file and save it as save records underscore ajax.php, and I will add some PHP code over here and will explain you in a moment. Let me explain it to you. As you can see, we have our PHP code that connects to the database server and saves the data into the database table. So I'm using MySQL library to connect and manipulate data. So first, as you can see, I have a $host, that is my local host, username that is root, password that is MySQL. My database server has a password MySQL, so if your database server has some different password, so use that please. And my database name is DB users, as you know that we have created this database some time ago. So after that, I am creating a connection object from MySQL function, and to this MySQL function I have passed host name, username, password and a database name. If connection is not successful, then we'll show user a connection failed message. Otherwise, we will get the data from user. As you know that inside $.ajax function, we use the method post and sent the data to the server. So here that data will be present in $_post super global array, and here we get the data from first name, last name and email fields, and assign this data to these variables. So here data validation is also performed. we check that if first name, last name or email is not present, so we'll send a result code to the user, and that will show validation message to the user that all fields are required. And after that we validate email address that it is a valid email address, and we use strPOS function or string position function of PHP, and inside this strPOS function we check that whether @ and the dot is present in the email field. So if it is not a valid email, we'll send a result code 3 to the user and show the appropriate message. So once all the fields data is present and email address is valid, we'll go to this else case, and inside this else case we have created a query insert into users table, and its columns first name, last name and email, and inside values we have used these question mark placeholders. So MySQL has a feature that we can use these question marks, and basically this prevents our website from SQL injection attacks. So after this $SQL, we prepare statement from connection object. We pass this SQL to connection object's prepare function, and this prepares our query and assign it to the statement variable. And inside statement variables we have used these question marks, so we will bind our variables to these question marks placeholders. We have 3 question marks, so we have used 3 strings. We have passed 3 strings S, S and S. So this represent basically our 3 parameters type, and other parameters are first name, last name and email variable, or the values that we have got from the user. So after the variables are bind, a statement object execute function is run, and this will execute this function, and if the data is inserted successfully, this result variable will contain 1, otherwise result equal to 0 will be sent back to the user. And we use echo $result, and this will send this response back to the user. So after the database connection is closed and our script completes its execution, this .done method is run, and the data is passed to client side to this function. As we have not JSON encoded this result, so we don't need to use this parse JSON method. And here we check that if result is equal to 1, then we'll show user a message that record is saved successfully, and we'll assign the class success. And if the result is 2, then we'll show the message that all fields are required, or if the email is not valid, then we'll show this message to the user. And after that we have a $message div, and I can show you over here. We have a div whose ID is message. So we get this message div, and we pass this str variable that contains message to its HTML function, and this HTML will add this message inside this div, and we add a class, whether it is error or success class, to this div, and then after 15,000 milliseconds we'll hide this div. So as we have completed our form, client side Ajax code and server side PHP code that connects and saves data into the database, let us run this script and see how it works. So before showing you the demo of our project, as I have already told that we are not JSON encoding our data onto the server, so I will delete this $parse JSON. So I will just assign this data result to this variable result and use it. So let me save this and open this project into the browser, how it works. So let me open the browser. I have just refreshed this form, and inside this database we have no record at this time. So let me add some records over here. So first I add the first name as John Doe, and its email is john@example example.com, and let me press the save button. We have a message, record saved successfully, and this message will hide. So let us go to the database and see whether this record is saved or not. So let me click on this browse link. Over here we have our first name John Doe and John at example.com. This record is saved into the database. So let us run it another time. So as a web developer, you should be efficient with using this Firebug. This is very helpful tool for debugging our application. So let me show you that when our request is posted to the server and the result is returned, I have right clicked over here and I will click inspect element with Firebug, and I will click this net tab, and let me clear this, and now I will add another record, Jane Doe, and I will her email as jane at example.com. So let me press the save button. We have our message, record saved successfully, and our request is posted to the server, and this data, email, first name and the last name, was posted to the server, and the response that we got was 1. So let us browse our database and see that this data is saved successfully or not. So when I click this browse button, we have our data Jane. So sorry, I have a spelling mistake over here, but that this data has been posted to the server and it is saved into the database table. So yes, here I made a mistake. So let us add another record. So I will add a test sample test at example.com. So when I press the save button, I see a success message, and when I go to this database, test example and test at example.com data is saved over here. So this brings us to the end of this tutorial. I hope you have enjoyed watching this tutorial and learned something new. Please leave your comments and feedback in the comments, and you can find the complete source code used in this tutorial by visiting the link given in the description of this video. For more articles and tutorials, please visit our blog programmerblog.net. Thank you for watching this tutorial.